It wasn't the shape I saw moving in the junipers that haunts me. It was the sound of my dead grandmother's voice, calling my name from a mouth full of yellowed predator's teeth. Nightbound Bloodline presents 5 Skinwalker encounters that are real. The word Skinwalker is tossed around in campfire tales and online forums, often stripped of its weight, its history, its terrifying reality. It becomes a catch-all for any strange sound in the dark. But in the vast, silent reaches of the American Southwest, and within the guarded stories of the Diné, the Navajo people, it is a truth spoken of in hushed tones, a violation of nature itself. A skinwalker is not a ghost or a simple monster. It is a perversion, a person who has gained terrible power by committing the ultimate transgression. To speak of them is to invite their attention, which makes the accounts you are about to hear all the more chilling. These are not folktales. They are reports from individuals who believe, with every fiber of their being, that they came face to face with something ancient, intelligent, and profoundly evil. Listen closely. The witness's story, Encounter 1. Our first account comes from a man we'll call James. He wrote to us from Flagstaff, Arizona. My name, you can call me James. I'm 48 years old. I've been a long-haul trucker for over 20 years. I've driven through every kind of night this country has to offer. Blizzards in the Rockies, fog so thick in Louisiana you could chew it, desert blacktops that go on forever. You see things on the road, strange lights, animals caught in your high beams. But you explain it all away. A trick of the light. Fatigue. I was a skeptic. Hard not to be when your whole job is dealing with the concrete, the diesel, the logbooks, the real world. This was about 3 years ago. I was on a run from Albuquerque to Page, cutting across the Navajo Nation on Route 191. It was late, maybe 2 a.m., dead of winter, so the desert cold was the kind that seeps into your bones. No moon, just a ceiling of stars so bright it felt like you could reach up and crack them. ID pulled over at one of those empty scenic turnouts to take a leak and splash some water on my face. No other cars for miles. Just the silence, or what should have been silence. But it wasn't. The second I killed the engine, I heard it. Sounds, carrying on the still air from way out in the scrubland. It sounded like singing. Not singing you'd hear on the radio. This was guttural, rhythmic, chanting. And under it, the sound of something running. Not the 4-beat rhythm of a deer or a coyote. This was a 2-beat thump-thump, thump-thump, like something running on 2 legs. Heavy. I froze, my breath puffing out in clouds. I'm not ashamed to say I was scared. This wasn't a fear of the dark. It was a deep, animal feeling in my gut that said wrong. This is all wrong. I fumbled for my high-beam spotlight, the one I use for checking my load, and swept it out over the brush. And I saw it, about 100 yards out, caught in the edge of the light. It was standing upright, tall, maybe 7 feet. It was lean, but not skinny, wiry, like twisted old rope. It was covered in a patchy, matted fur that looked gray and brown in the light, like it had been rolled in ashes and dirt. Its head was elongated, but not quite a wolf's, not quite a man's. It was in between. The worst part was its eyes. They reflected the light back not with the bright green of a coyote, but with a dull, reddish-amber glow, like dying coals. But it wasn't just standing there. It was moving, jerky, almost spastic. It would take 2 loping strides on 2 legs, then drop to all 4s and scramble forward, then pop back up. It was circling something out there in the dark, something I couldn't see. And that chanting, it was coming from it. My blood went cold. I've seen bears. I've seen mountain lions. This was neither. This was something that knew how to use a body that wasn't built right. I dropped the spotlight, scrambled back into my cab, and locked the doors. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely get the key in the ignition. Just as the engine roared to life, the chanting stopped. The 2-beat running stopped. The silence that followed was heavier than any sound. I threw the truck in gear, not even looking, just desperate to get back on the asphalt. As my headlights swung across the turnout, I saw it one last time. It was much closer now, just off the shoulder. It wasn't running. It was just standing, staring right at me. And as I accelerated past, I swear I saw its head tilt to the side, like a dog hearing a new sound. A human gesture on that inhuman face. I drove the rest of the way to Page with every light on that rig blazing. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I told my dispatcher I had engine trouble, took a hotel room, and didn't sleep for 2 days. I've never driven that route at night again. I'll take a 200-mile detour without a second thought. I know what they say about skinwalkers out there. I never believed it. Not until that night. What I saw, it wasn't an animal. It was wearing a skin that didn't fit, and it knew I was watching. A creature that moves between 2 legs and 4, emitting a human-like chant in the deepest night. This violation of categories is a hallmark of the Skinwalker legend. But what happens when the imitation becomes more precise? Our next account delves into that terrifying mimicry. The witness's story, Encounter 2. Our second story comes from a young woman named Elena. Her experience did not occur on a remote highway, but on the very edge of a suburban community bordering the high desert of New Mexico. I'm Elena. I'm 29, and I'm a graphic designer. I work from home. My husband, Mark, and I bought our first house 3 years ago in Rio Rancho. It was a steal because it backed right up to a arroyo, a big, dry gulch filled with chamisa and juniper. We loved the privacy, the view of the Sandia Mountains. We're city kids, originally. This felt like our little slice of wilderness. I've always been rational. I have a degree. I believe in science. The idea of something like a skinwalker was just a creepy story to me, something from a movie. It started with the dogs. Ours, and all the dogs in the neighborhood. They'd go crazy every night around the same time, just after midnight. Not the usual bark at a raccoon frenzy. This was a different sound. Whining, howling, a pure terror in their voices. Our Labrador, Bear, would press himself against the back door, his whole body shaking, hair up on his spine. He'd urinate on the floor in fear. This went on for a week. Then, one night, I was up late working on a deadline. Mark was asleep. The house was quiet except for the hum of my computer. And then, I heard it. From the back patio, clear as day. It was Mark's voice. "Elena? Baby, I'm locked out. Can you open the door?" My blood ran cold. Because Mark was. I reached over and felt his shoulder next to me in bed. He was sound asleep, breathing deeply. The voice came again, a perfect imitation of his sleepy, slightly annoyed tone. "Elena, come on. It's cold out here." It was his voice, but it was wrong. There was a wetness to it, a hollowness, like it was being pushed through a throat not meant for human speech. And it was coming from the pitch-black patio where no one should have been. I sat there, paralyzed. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The voice changed. The mimicry slipped. It became pleading, then a whisper. "Let me in. Let me see you." And then it stopped. The silence was worse. I must have sat there for an hour, just staring at the sliding glass door, seeing only my own pale reflection. Finally, I woke Mark up. He checked the house, checked the patio. Nothing. He thought I'd had a nightmare. 2 nights later, it came back. But this time, it didn't use words. It was the sound of a baby crying. A desperate, heart-wrenching wail right outside our bedroom window. We don't have a baby. The nearest house with an infant is 3 streets over. This cry was right there, in the scrub brush at the edge of the arroyo. It was a perfect, gut-twisting sound. Mark heard it too. He went white. He grabbed his gun and went to the window, but he didn't open it. He just stared out into the blackness. The crying suddenly cut off into a choked gurgle, then a low, guttural chuckle. That was the worst sound I have ever heard. It wasn't animal. It was intelligent, malicious. It was enjoying our fear. We moved out a month later. We sold the house at a loss. We told the realtor it was because of the commute, but it was because of that thing. It wasn't trying to break in. It was trying to lure us out, to get us to come into the dark, where the rules change. I don't believe in ghost stories, but I believe in that voice. I believe something out there can wear sound like a skin, and it uses it to haunt. A voice that wears the skin of a loved one. A cry that mimics innocent distress. This predatory mimicry suggests an intelligence that studies its prey, learning how to exploit the most fundamental human bonds, love and the instinct to protect. But what of those who have lived on that land for generations, who carry the warnings in their blood? Our next account comes from within the Navajo Nation itself. The witness's story, Encounter 3. Out of profound respect for the traditions and the sensitivity of this subject, our contributor has asked to be identified only as a dying grandfather. His story is not one of a single, sudden encounter, but of a lifetime of living with a known, shadowed presence. A Diné grandfather voice is old, weathered like sandstone, speaking slowly with a quiet, unshakable gravity. There is no fear in his tone, only a deep, weary certainty. I have lived on this land for 82 summers. My family's sheep have grazed in these same canyons since before the long walk. I do not speak English well, so my grandson is writing this for me. But the words are mine. I do not tell this story lightly. To speak of Yinald Lushii is to give it power, to invite it closer. But you must understand it is real, so you will be careful. I was not always a believer in the old ways as a young man. I went to the boarding school. They told us our stories were superstition. For a time, I listened. My true understanding came when I was maybe 16. My uncle, a Hatalii, a medicine man, took me to gather specific plants for a ceremony deep in a remote part of the Chuska Mountains. We were on horseback. As we entered a narrow canyon, the horses grew nervous. Their ears pinned back, and they snorted, refusing to go further. The air grew still, too still. The birds were silent. My uncle stopped. He got down, took pollen from his pouch, and offered it to the directions. He spoke in a low, firm voice to the canyon walls. Then he pointed to a high ledge across from us. "Look," he said, "do not point your finger. Use your lips." On the ledge, standing perfectly still against the red rock, was a wolf. But it was wrong. Its legs were too long, its posture too straight. It watched us, and its gaze did not feel like the gaze of an animal. It felt like the gaze of a person, a very angry, very jealous person. And then it smiled. A wolf's muzzle cannot make that expression. It pulled its lips back, and it was not a snarl. It was a mockery of a human smile. A cold intelligence shone in its eyes. My uncle spoke to it, not in a language I fully understood, an old language. He told it we meant no harm, that we were there for healing, and that it must leave. He was not asking. He was stating a law. The thing on the ledge tilted its head. Then, in a movement that was too fluid, it turned and simply vanished into a crack in the rock no bigger than my hand. It did not run. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. The canyon remained silent. My uncle was tense for a long time. He made us leave without the plants. "They are not for us today," he said. "The price is too high." That was my first lesson. They are not monsters in stories. They are people who have chosen a terrible path. They use glamour, confusion. They can look like a coyote, an owl, a wolf, even a person you know. But they are always slightly off. The proportions are wrong. The eyes hold the wrong kind of light. They move between shapes too easily. I have seen other things over the years. A coyote with no shadow, running at noon. An owl with the face of my late neighbor, staring into my hogan. The smell of decay where there is no death. I do not fear them for myself. I know the prayers, the protections my uncle taught me. I fear them for the young, for those who have forgotten the old warnings, who think the dark is empty. It is not empty. It is occupied. And some of those occupants remember what it is to be human, and they hate us for it. A warning passed down through generations, not as folklore, but as survival instruction. The idea of a creature that is fundamentally a person who has sacrificed their humanity for power, is perhaps the most chilling core of the Skinwalker legend. It implies a consciousness, a motive beyond simple hunger. But what is the nature of that power? Our fourth account suggests a terrifying answer: the power to corrupt the very land and anything that touches it. The witness's story, Encounter 4. Our fourth story was sent to us by a former graduate student in cultural anthropology. For her safety and professional standing, she wishes to be known only as Clara. Her encounter was not with a figure in the dark, but with a residue, a leftover malice that clings to an object and spreads. My name is Clara. I'm 34. At the time of this event, I was finishing my master's thesis on cross-cultural representations of trickster figures. I was academically fascinated by the Skinwalker, strictly as a sociological and narrative construct. I believed it was a powerful metaphor for social transgression, nothing more. My research took me to a small trading post just off the reservation in Arizona. The owner, an elderly Navajo man, was famously reticent on the subject. After many visits, buying supplies, and just listening, he seemed to decide I was respectful, if naive. One afternoon, as I was leaving, he stopped me. He didn't look at me, but busied himself arranging a basket of turquoise jewelry. "You keep asking about stories," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But you don't know what you're asking to hear. You think it's just words." He finally looked up, and his eyes were deadly serious. "You want to understand? Sometimes they leave things behind. To curse, to play games. Don't touch what doesn't belong to you." A week later, I was hiking in a very remote, scrub desert area I'd gotten permission to survey. It was brutally hot, the air shimmering. I was looking for petroglyphs. In a shallow, dry wash, partially buried in the sand, I saw it. It was a bundle, wrapped in faded, brittle red cloth and tied with what looked like old, greasy sinew. It was about the size of a fist. It felt deliberately placed. A chill went through me, despite the heat. I remembered the trader's warning. But my academic curiosity, my arrogance, overruled it. Here was a primary source, I thought. A ritual object. I used a stick to carefully lift it, placed it in a Ziploc bag, and put it in my backpack. That night, in my rented RV parked at the edge of the desert, the feeling began. A profound, heavy dread. The air inside felt thick, oppressive. I chalked it up to guilt for taking something that wasn't mine. I placed the bundle on the small dinette table, intending to photograph it. The smell hit me first. A sweet, cloying odor of decayed flowers and wet earth, emanating from the sealed plastic bag. Then, the sound started. Soft scratching at the door of the RV. Not like an animal, but like fingernails testing the metal. A low, rhythmic tapping on the roof, directly above where I sat. Tap, tap, tap. I froze, my heart hammering. I looked at the bundle. In the dim light, I swear I saw the cloth shift, as if something inside had moved. The tapping on the roof turned into a slow, deliberate dragging sound, from one end of the RV to the other. Panic seized me. I knew, with a certainty that bypassed all reason, that the thing outside and the thing in the bundle were connected, that I had brought a beacon for it right into my home. I grabbed the bag, flung open the door, and threw the bundle as far as I could into the darkness. I screamed, "Take it back. I don't want it." The silence that fell was instant and absolute. The dragging stopped. The smell vanished. I spent the rest of the night with every light on, too terrified to move. At first light, I packed and left. I never went back for my equipment. I abandoned my thesis topic entirely. I changed my field to European folklore. But here's what convinces me it was real. For months afterward, wherever I lived, I would find small, twisted sticks arranged on my doorstep. A single, black feather on my windowsill. And the dogs, they always knew. Any dog I encountered would look at me, sniff the air around me, and back away, growling low in its throat. It was as if a scent clung to me. A taint. The trader wasn't warning me about stories. He was warning me about contagion. Some things are not just seen or heard. They are carried. And I had carried a piece of one home. An intelligence that leaves traps. A malice that can be physically transferred, like a disease. This moves the Skinwalker from a creature of mere superstition into the realm of a paranormal pathogen. But for our final account, we return to the most primal fear, the direct hunt. When the imitation fails and the thing in the dark decides to simply pursue. The witness's story, Encounter 5. Leo, I'm 41. I served 8 years as a combat medic, and for the last decade, I volunteered with search and rescue in the Four Corners region. I know the high desert canyon country like the back of my hand. Every slot canyon, every seep spring, every old cattle trail. I've found lost hikers in blizzards, pulled climbers from rock faces. I operate on evidence, on procedure, on what I can see and touch. I don't have time for spook stories. This was last November. We got a call about 2 missing college kids who'd gone backpacking in a notoriously labyrinthine system of canyons. Weather was turning, so time was critical. I was paired with my partner, Rick, a guy as seasoned as me. We took a helicopter to the last known coordinates and started our grid search on foot. The first day, nothing. Cold, clear, quiet. Too quiet. No birds, no coyotes. Just the wind. That night, we made camp on a high mesa. Around 0300, I was on watch. I heard rocks clattering down a slope below us. Not a fall, more like someone kicking them loose. I scanned with my night vision monocular. Nothing. Then I heard it. A voice. It was faint, distorted by the wind, but it sounded like a young man's voice, yelling help. Over here. My blood went cold. It came from a direction opposite to where our search grids were focused. It was impossible. Rick heard it too. We radioed command, but they had no other teams in that sector. We were it. We broke camp and headed toward the sound, our training overriding the unease. The voice called out twice more, each time leading us deeper into a narrow, twisting canyon weed marked as low probability. Dawn broke, gray and cold. The voice had stopped. We were in the bottom of a canyon, so deep the light barely reached us. That's when we found the first backpack. It was one of the kids. It was ripped open, not by animal claws, but as if by hands. The contents were scattered, but not eaten, just examined. A water bladder was punctured. A protein bar was unwrapped and left in the dirt. That's when the feeling of being watched became a physical weight. We drew our sidearms. We've faced bears. This was different. This was a tactical feeling. We were being herded. We found the second backpack 200 yards down canyon, near a dry waterfall. Next to it, in the soft sand, were footprints. They started as hiking boot prints, the kid's size. Then, over the course of 10 feet, they changed. The toes elongated. The arch disappeared. The stride lengthened impossibly from a man's walk to a loping 6-foot gait. And then the boot prints vanished, replaced by deep, dog-like paw prints. But they were too large for a coyote, too widely spaced for a mountain lion. And they were bipedal. 2 legs. Rick looked at me, his face pale. What the hell walks like that, Leo? That's when the rock came. It whistled down from the canyon rim above us, a fist-sized chunk of sandstone that exploded at our feet. It wasn't a fall. It was thrown, with force and accuracy. We ran, not a tactical retreat. We ran. We're both in good shape, but the thing, it kept pace with us. We could hear it crashing through the brush on the canyon rim above, keeping parallel. It wasn't trying to be quiet anymore. It was showing us it could. It would sometimes get ahead, and we'd hear a landslide of gravel as it dropped into the canyon ahead to block us, forcing us to scramble up a side slope. It was playing with us, running us like prey. We finally made it to an open wash we could signal the chopper from. The pursuit stopped the moment we broke into the open sunlight. The silence returned. We never found the kids. Not a trace beyond those packs. The official report lists them as lost, presumed deceased from exposure. Rick and I never spoke about the details again. He transferred to another county a month later. I quit SAR. I still hike, but never alone and never in that canyon system. What hunted us that day wasn't an animal. Animals don't use voices as bait. They don't leave staged scenes. They don't throw rocks. It was intelligent. It understood tactics, terrain, and fear. It was wearing the kids' trail, and then it wore their sounds. And when it was done with that game, it just wanted to run us until we broke. I've seen evil in human form. This was something else. It was a hunter that remembered being human, and it remembered how to terrify. 5 accounts. A chanter in the headlights. A voice at the door. A smiling wolf on a ledge. A cursed bundle in a wash. A strategic hunter in a canyon. From different people, different places, a terrifying consistency emerges. A presence that is intelligent, imitative, and possesses a malice that feels deeply, unnervingly personal. These are not stories of vague phantoms. They are reports of a thing that interacts with our world, mimicking our voices, manipulating objects, studying our behaviors, and exploiting our deepest instincts to help a loved one, to investigate a curiosity, to run from a predator. The line between myth and reality, as our channel suggests, is not a wall. It is a thin, worn curtain blowing in a desert wind. And sometimes, from the other side, something reaches through, not to merely scare us, but to remind us that some corners of the map are still labeled with ancient, potent warnings for a reason. If you have had an encounter you cannot explain, if you carry a story that feels too heavy to hold alone, we invite you to share it in the comments below. You are not alone in the dark. Perhaps, by sharing, we can better understand the shape of what moves within it. If you found yourself holding your breath tonight, if these accounts resonated with a chill of recognition, please help us continue this exploration. Like this video, subscribe to Nightbound Bloodline, and tap the bell so you won't miss our next descent into the unexplained. This has been Nightbound Bloodline. Thank you for listening. Until next time, sleep with one eye open. The end.